A recent poll by the Associated Press has shown that only 21% of Americans are extremely confident in the statement, the universe began 13.8 billion years ago with a Big Bang. Only 27% are confident that the Earth is 4.5 billion years old. And when asked about evolution, only 31% agreed with the statement, life on Earth, including human beings, evolved through a process of natural selection. However, when people were presented with the statement, the universe is so complex, there must be a supreme being guiding its creation, a stunning 54% were extremely certain about this prospect. I wish I could say that it's surprising that so many of my fellow Americans are so skeptical of science and yet so not skeptical of their own religious beliefs, but unfortunately that's kind of par for the course. And the way that they dismiss science is they say, well, you know, how do you know human beings in their modern form emerged 200,000 years ago? Were you there? How do you know that the Earth was formed 4.5 billion years ago? Were you there? How do you know that the universe started 13.8 billion years ago? Were you there? Well, here's the problem with that. Why is first-hand experience supposedly the gold standard of evidence? Like, let me ask you a question. If you heard an eyewitness testimony that Craig was the murderer of some victim somewhere, but there was DNA evidence that Joe was the killer, who would you believe was the killer? Would you believe the eyewitness because they were there? Or would you believe the scientific evidence because it's, scientific fucking evidence? If you answered the former, I hope you're never on a jury if I'm going to trial. I mean, unless I did it, then it would be quite fortunate to have someone who puts eyewitness testimony on a higher pedestal than actual evidence. Let's use the emergence of modern man. Let's say you wanted to go back 200,000 years and see that emergence happen. Well, you wouldn't be able to because it would be a slow process that took place over many, many generations. So even if you could go back and observe, you wouldn't be able to directly observe like, hey, here is the exact moment that modern human beings emerged, because there was no exact moment. When scientists talk about the Big Bang as the prevailing cosmological model, they don't embrace the Big Bang because, it appeals to them. They don't embrace it because that's what they want to be true. They embrace it because that's what the evidence shows. They embrace it because that is currently, in the eyes of most trained scientists who work in fields like cosmology or astrophysics, that is the model with the greatest explanatory power for what they see and observe in the here and the now. Now, could that be flawed? Of course it could. Just like any other scientific model that has existed throughout the years that has been replaced or updated by new information, by new data. But you know what? Just because we haven't necessarily stumbled upon perfection doesn't mean we reject our best theory, that we reject our best model of how reality works. We don't just say, well, this might be false, so let's just defer to Bronze Age mythology. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, does it? The science skeptics do have one thing right. Everyone should be skeptical. You should ask questions. You should challenge ideas. But why are they not skeptical about the existence of their God? Why does their skepticism end there? Because if they applied the same stringent standard of evidence to their God that they do to the sciences, then they would find their God far less credible by many orders of magnitude. Because, quite simply, there is no good evidence for the existence of God. If there was, I would believe in God. Because that's my standard. I want evidence. I've been on the internet for 9 fucking years as the amazing atheist, making these goddamn arguments, and as of yet, I've had plenty of people come to me and say, I have proof of God, but they never do. All they have is a bunch of sophistry, circular fucking logic, logical fallacies galore, and no sense of skepticism towards their own ideas, but a profound sense of skepticism towards any sort of scientific idea. They're skeptical of science, they're skeptical of the scientific method, they're skeptical of logic and reason itself, but they're not at all skeptical about a magical man who created the whole universe and has a set of rules that we're supposed to obey, and if we don't, he's going to punish us for all time in a fiery pit presided over by his arch enemy, a fallen angel named the devil. That sounds reasonable. That sounds logical. That sounds like a statement 54% of people would go like, yeah, that's pretty fucking solid reasoning there. Universe so complex, had to be some kind of robed, bearded deity that created everything. I think that science skeptics miss the fundamental difference between science and faith. Faith is believing without proof, just because you know, just because you have a feeling, because you had a personal experience, because you feel that a prayer was answered. You have a feeling of certainty, but certainty is an emotional state, and it doesn't necessarily correspond to logic or reason or evidence. I mean, a man who lost his keys can feel certain that someone took them. I set them right here. If they're not here, someone must have moved them. Or maybe you're just misremembering. Maybe your feelings of certainty are not really warranted. Science is not a belief. Science is not faith. Science is, according to the Oxford Dictionary, the intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation and experiment. We should all be skeptics, but we should be careful what we're skeptical of and why. If you're skeptical of science because ancient fairy tales written by a number of people in the desert over 2,000 years ago and edited by kings and dictators ever after, then maybe your skepticism is misplaced. Maybe it's there for the wrong reasons. Maybe it's not true skepticism. Maybe it's just you resisting the tide of fucking modernity. Maybe it's just you rejecting knowledge in favor of superstition. And the reason I think that is because your skepticism sadly vanishes the moment it's needed, when it's time to apply scrutiny to your own ideas. I'm the Amazing Atheist. Hey everybody, if you like this fiction shirt, kind of like a play on the coexist stickers you might see floating around out there, if you like this shirt, you can get it at AmazingAtheistTees.com. It's right down there, or maybe we'll have a place you can click somewhere on the screen. If so, that'll be self-evident. And if you like this video, be sure to comment on this video, rate this video, subscribe to this channel if you're not, and visit all my social media links. Follow me on places like Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, Facebook. You know the fucking drill.